All right, I want to talk just for a few minutes about my bike packing setup. So I just got done with a trip in Vermont. I did the roundabout Brattleboro, and I just got done cleaning the bike, so I figured this was a good time to give it a little walkthrough. So my setup is based on a hardtail. I use the Santa Cruz Chameleon carbon frame, which I've found to be really excellent for bike packing. It's light, but it's super strong. One feature that I like about it is it has adjustable chainstay lengths, right? So I usually put it in the longer setting for bike packing and then the shorter setting for anything single track. Now I use this bike for a lot of things. I use it for bike packing, but I also use it as my, sort of quote-unquote gravel bike for any, sort of gravel appropriate events. Whereas I have a full suspension mountain bike that I really use for day-to-day mountain biking. So on this bike I have two different wheel sets that I use. These are some 700 by 50 WTBs that I have on here. So these are more of kind of the, fast gravel and paved wheels that I use, which was really great for the Brattleboro trip. I also have a set of 27.5 plus wheels with a little bit more aggressive Maxxis Recons on there, so that has some more serious grip for trips that might involve more single track. So for gearing, I'm a big fan of the Shimano 12-speed setup. I've got a little bit of a mixed bag here, but it's basically the 11-speed version of the SLX cranks that I put a wolf tooth chainring on to make it 12-speed compatible. The SLX 12-speed cassette. I ended up getting a Dior derailleur instead of SLX. It was kind of just available and cheap at the time. But up front I'm using the XT shifter, which, as I've said in the past, I swear by. And I have SLX 2 piston brakes on here actually right now. I think if I were to build this up from scratch, I'd probably go with 4 piston for bike packing. I'm not light, and bike packing gear isn't either, so I think 4 piston is a great way to go. But this is just what I had when I was putting this bike together. I like the suspension in front. It doesn't, I don't find that I tend to lose a lot of efficiency with it. This RockShox Pike is actually, pretty supportive, I would say, and efficient, right? So I like having that cushion. So for actual storage, obviously the bags are not on it right now. I just got done washing it, so I got a custom-made frame bag from Rogue Panda that fits the frame perfectly, which I think is a really great way to maximize that internal frame storage. I used to use a large seat bag. I think I had the one from Toe Peak, and it got me through my first few trips, but I definitely found I was having some trouble with it, wobbling, and I had a difficult time getting it through the saddle rails when I needed to get it on and off. So I wanted to try out this Old Man Mountain Elkhorn rack, which has been an absolute game changer for me. So it's a pretty simple design, super modular. So all of these bits are essentially detachable. So this rack can actually be used as a rear or a front, and it can really fit just about any frame you want it to. So on the Chameleon, it's carbon, right? So I obviously don't have actual mounting points like you might on an aluminum or steel bike. So they work with the Robert Axle project, and you get a special axle that fits your frame and has some protrusions that the rack sits on. And then they send you these little adapter clamps, right? So they basically send you oversized zip ties that you can mount on your frame, or if you were going to use this as a front, which you can do with a suspension fork, right? You would zip tie those over here. You'd get the axle that you need, and boom, you could have a front rack on really any bike. So that thing has really changed the amount of stuff I can carry, and it's noticeably way more stable than using a seat pack was. So I mount a large dry bag up here, and then it has a set of 3 mounts on each side. So right now on one side I have it set up for a water bottle, and on the other side I have it set up with an anything cage where I can put a tent or a sleeping pad, really whatever I feel like using. For bag storage up front, I use Salsa's handlebar mounted cage. So it clamps onto a 31.8 millimeter handlebar and then provides this sturdy cradle. So you can get a package, right, where they'll give you, they either have a top loading dry bag or a side loading dry bag. But you can really use this with any, cylindrical dry bag you want. You could just strap a tent straight in there, whatever you need. And it's super sturdy. It has never slipped on me. And I find keeps things, just off the handlebar, so it leaves room for cables, and holds things, super sturdy. There's not a lot of bouncing going on with it at all. So the final piece of the puzzle for making this bike a real kind of bike packing machine was this handlebar setup. On my first few trips, I had used kind of a normal mountain bike handlebar and was finding I was getting lots of neck pain, back pain, wrist pain. It just kind of stank. And so these are the Velo Orange Seine bar with regular bar ends that just slide onto the handlebar. So these are just clamped on. These are a separate piece that I wrap tape around to kind of give it a nice continuous smooth grip. But there were a few things about the Velo Orange Seine bar that really stood out to me. They have a 40 millimeter rise, so they get you up nice and tall, and they have 35 degrees of sweep. So I had tried a 45 degree sweep bar on another bike and thought that was just a little too much, and the 35 has proven to be extremely comfortable for all day riding. And the last feature that kind of for me sealed the deal was that they're a 31.8 millimeter clamp, whereas a lot of alt bars have a narrower clamp, which is fine, but I wanted to be able to use it with my salsa gear, with my GPS clamp. And these bars have totally changed how I see biking. These bars basically got me to sell my drop bar bike and use this bike as a gravel machine instead. They're just that much more comfortable for me. There's a little bit of, obviously, aerodynamics loss, which is kind of one of the reasons I added this position, which it is actually quite effective. You notice when moving your hands from here to here, you notice a significant decrease in drag, and you can kind of crank out some of those flatter, more just cranking miles. So yeah, that's my bike packing rig, right? Hardtail. The handlebars are really what make the bike, and that rear rack has enabled me to actually carry as much gear as I need. That's my setup.